Ladies and gentlemen, we are now ready to launch and release the report of multi-regional clinical trial report. I'd like to welcome back Mr. S. Sridhar and Mr. K.G. Ananthakrishnan, and like to invite on screen Dr. Nilima Misra, former National Chair Clinical Pharmacology, ICMR.
Thank you, Kathy. I would like to take opportunity to introduce Dr. Nilima Misra. Dr. Misra is a former National Chair, Clinical Pharmacology, ICM. She is a recipient of many national, international, university and college awards. Example, Nathaniel Tequet Memorial Distinguished Service Award by American College of Clinical Pharmacology in September 2018. B.C. Roy National Award, Vasvik Award for Industrial Research, Mayor of Mumbai Awards. She is Emeritus Scientist, former Chairperson, Scientific Advisory Group, Basic Medical Science Division, and member of Scientific Advisory Board, National Chair of Clinical Pharmacology, 2010-2020, Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR, Government of India, New Delhi. Chairperson, member of committees such as WHO committees, Product Development, Advisory Committee for Safety of Medical Products, Drug Statistics Methodology, Malaria Advisory Group, Secretary General, Clinical Division, International Union of Basic and Clinical Pharmacologists, Government of India committees. Drug Technical Advisory Board, DTAB, Chairperson, Core Training Panel Pharmacovigilance Program of India, Co-person, Chairperson of National Essential Medicines Committee, Chairperson, DSMC, Betacrine Conditional Access Program for Tuberculosis, Chairperson, Subcommittee of Drug Technical Committee of Fixed Dose Combination, Member, Monitoring Committee, Member, Evaluation Committee, Chair, Ayush. Dr. Nilima, it's a real pleasure to have you, and I was so proud and humbled to really introduce you to the August audience. Over to you, madam. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sridhar and Dr. Anand Krishnan. It's a real privilege for me here, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's indeed a great honor for me to give this preamble on the multi-regional clinical trial report and its release today, which is being organized by the OPPI and ISCR. We would really like to know, why is MRCT important? Why do we need clinical trials in different regions of the country? Well, it will give us and be able to gain global experience, and it will help accelerate the drug development process, registration, and from a public health perspective, provide access quickly and at lower cost to needy patient and benefit the patient. Then why MRCT now? MRCT is really not new. In fact, 25 years back in India was part of a multinational clinical trial for a new anti-malarial drug, important for drug-resistant malaria. Based on the results of this study, it received global approval, is part of the WHO program, and it has saved millions of lives. Then why is MRCT important today? COVID pandemic has accelerated, strengthened many aspects, as mentioned already by Dr. Sridhar and Anand Krishnan, many aspects of vaccine and drug and devices development and clinical research. As per WHO's February 2022 report, India ranks second, next to only USA, in the number of clinical trials for the WHO's R&D blueprint diseases like COVID. But there are many other unmet needs and diseases, like infections due to resistant microorganisms, diseases of women and children and old age, Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, to name but a few. Let me tell you a story of a 6-year-old boy from Nasik, a very alert researcher, in fact, surprisingly, a chemical engineer at that. He noticed that this 6-year-old boy's shirt could be buttoned from neck down, but on the abdomen and or his belly, It couldn't be buttoned because his abdomen had become simply too big. And indeed, the boy had liver enlargement, which was on account of a rare metabolic disease. Drugs for such rare diseases are being developed globally. Carrying out MRCTs for efficacy and safety testing can help early access and lowering of cost for such patients. In fact, early diagnosis and access to medicine can save this patient's life. What is the global and Indian scenario? ICH, the International Committee on Harmonization, has already developed guidelines for MRCT. Japan has taken proactive steps for early engagement of MRCTs. What about India? Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that the world is a family, is our old saying, meaning thereby do things for general good, benefit the patients. But are we ready for MRCTs? Infrastructure for healthcare and research is being continuously upgraded in our country. Today, annually, nearly 90,000 undergraduate medical seats are being filled. There are 1.2 million registered doctors, 70,000 hospitals, 30,000 primary health centers, 150,000 sub-centers, model research units in many hospitals, multidisciplinary rural health research units of ICMR, product development centers and rational use of medicine centers of ICMR, disease registries, national institutes of ICMR, CSIR, and number of government programs, as Dr. Sridhar already mentioned. More is needed. Sorry, excuse me. We need more. It is seen that globally, there is underrepresentation in clinical trials of Asians and Africans. Harvard, USA has in fact set up an MRCT center with focus on capacity building and listening to the trial participants. It's important that clinical trials are of high quality, are reported completely, correctly, and promptly so that they contribute to evidence-based future clinical trials and policy decisions. For all this, there is need for societal and patients' confidence and support. Good standard of infrastructure, trained and qualified clinical research staff, investigator, ethics committee members. While indeed, world is like a member of family, there are differences between regions. This must be understood and all available knowledge should be shared. Approach should be patient care and safety. Paying attention to diversity, effect modifiers like genetics, culture, food habits, I need not mention here the diversity in India itself, and healthcare norms. Early consideration of all these points indeed will help and accelerate the process, which is what MRCT is trying to do. Early acceptance of all this will lead to government, drug regulators, and societal acceptance, and will indeed benefit the patient, which is what is expected, as what Anand Krishnan and Dr. Sridhar were mentioning. I hope with this preamble, audience would be more than convinced about the need for MRCT and what needs to be done to make it most effective. And thank you once again for giving me this opportunity. And Dr. Sumani, our drug controller, will, I'm sure, give his comments on this. Thank you all very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Nilima. I would now like to just quickly introduce to you, as Dr. Sumani is already on here with us on screen. We have with us Dr. Vidi Sumani, the Drugs Controller General, India Central Drug Standard Control Organization, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Now that we have all our dignitaries on screen, Mr. Sridhar, may I request you to please give a brief introduction to Dr. Sumani as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Dr. Sumani. Thank you for joining us today. Dr. Sumani in India does not require an introduction at all. He is very, very popular man. Every person knows him. But our forum has got a lot of people from outside of India also dialing in. So I'll take a minute to introduce Dr. Sumani to the benefit of people outside the country here today. Dr. Sumani is a drugs controller in India under DHES, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. He holds an MPharm PhD in pharmaceutical sciences. He is working in CDSCO in drugs regulation for the last 22 years and has vast experience in the field of GMP, GCP, GRP, GDP, GLP, dossiers, etc. He has been involved in formulating various national regulatory guidelines on similar biologics and contributed to various WHO guidelines on drugs, devices, and vaccines related issues. Dr. Sumani's focus areas are simplification regulation and access to quality medical products through good regulatory practices and strengthening of drug regulatory system. He is well-known speaker and trainer of various national and international WHO scientific bodies and was awarded merit scholarship fellowship by government since schooling days till the completion of his PhD. Dr. Sumani's role in managing and supporting during the COVID pandemic was exceptional. We want to thank him and his entire CDSO for the exceptional work in the pandemic, sir. Thank you once again for joining us here today, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now that we have both our dignitaries, Dr. Nilima Misra and Dr. Vidi Sumani, I would like to take this moment to do the official report release of MRCT. And before we do that, can we have the audio visual of the report, please? May I now request all our dignitaries to kindly hold up the report facing the camera for the official MRCT report release. Just hold on a moment. Yes, let's take this perfect picture moment and take a snapshot of it. Thank you so much, dignitaries. Thank you very much. With that, the MRCT report is officially released, and I would request Dr. Vidi Sumani to kindly address the gathering.
Thank you, organizers. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, OPPI, for giving me this opportunity to join this your annual meeting and changing frontiers of healthcare research in a dynamic and digitized world. And specifically, when Dr. Nilima Misra, well-known scientist and friend, guide, philosopher of all of us, has given the preamble, it becomes even more easier to talk about the MRCTs, which we usually call in our country as a global clinical trials. The drug development, I would just start with some of the, things that drug development is becoming more complex with advancement of evolving scientific principles and enhanced understanding of pathophysiology of disease conditions, and development of newer medicines follow complex clinical development paths, as earlier explained. And many of these are targeting towards specific elements of disease pathology, depending on molecular biology, and also sometimes very specific targets. And we can see that in every sphere, like oncology drugs for specific mutations, drugs for rare diseases, evolving gene therapies, etc. And during the current pandemic, one of the major transformation observed is the regulatory agility in both the decision making and scheduling the consultative meetings. Whether you have the dossier assessments and the meetings of the experts, quick learning attitude shown by the all stakeholders, including industry, government, regulator, and academia, has enabled the availability of many medicines for management of COVID-19 with quick turnaround time. Medicines includes vaccines, other kinds of immunobiologicals, small molecule therapeutic drugs, and also I would like to say that even diagnostics. And globally, there has been transformation in drug development to adapt quickly for the adaptive design to enable fast track launches. And one such development is how do we rely on data generated in multi-regional clinical trials without compromising on quality, safety, and compliance to the regulatory provisions. Most of the innovative drug molecules undergoes a robust multi-regional clinical trial process to include diverse set of patients, which gives specifically optimal data. And if there is no variability anticipated in the drug response or disease pathology, then multi-regional clinical trial data may become what we can say a robust tool to enable simultaneous access of drugs without the need of undergoing a similar set of additional local clinical trial, which helps in rationalizing cost, time, and resources. That is the most important advantage of this MRCTs. But while assessing these, that there are no major differences, the stakeholders, scientists, and regulators have a little bit of challenge because of the definitive factors like the differences in the local standard of care, ethnic differences, genetic differences. And in the past, clinical trials for the purpose of regulatory approvals of the drugs in various countries were conducted independently from those in, you can say, the countries like US, EU, because of concerns that ethnic differences among the population might affect drug responses, efficacy, and safety. I'm talking specifically from the perspective of the Asian and Indian region. In general, the strategy initiating development in one region, following up with the similar studies in the subsequent region, used to result in duplication of the studies and delayed development with late market access or the access to the patient in subsequent regions. This situation was actually seen earlier in various countries. And to increase the efficiency of the drug development and minimize the duplications of the things which may not be required, the E5 guidelines entitled Ethnic Differences in the Acceptability of the Foreign Clinical Trial Data was established by ICH of the technical requirements for pharmaceutical and followed by regulatory implementation in various countries including US, Japan, EU, and we also adopted in our regulations in the NDCT rule to a maximum extent. In 2014, the Pharmaceutical and Medical Devices Agency, PMDA, submitted to the ICH a concept paper proposing new harmonized guidelines on general principle for planning, design, and etc. of MRCT. And this guidelines was prepared through consultative process. The need of our is, as Sridhar has already explained, because I personally feel simplification is the most important. The regulatory compliances or the patient safety can be achieved if we make our guidelines and regulation on the in such a simple manner that even the layman can understand it. of course, scientific people will understand it. The new drug approval processes should be logical and based on the scientific principle. There is a clear need to develop additional guidelines to cover the topics where there is a lack of clarity and to make the existing guidelines much more efficient. Further, there is a need to have what I can say, a lot of dynamism, robustness, and detailing of preclinical toxicology studies, clinical development, and post-marketing authorization studies, and how the digitalized technologies, artificial intelligence also can help in these regards, which we have utilized to a large extent during the COVID period, and there are many examples of that. Because during the COVID period, it was the lockdowns, the patients were not able to visit the sites, and uh, doctors were not able to see the patients, but still the clinical data evaluation was necessary. So in that cases, the digital technology helped to do that things. And MRCT is a good idea to start with. Theoretically, MRCT would be better option for data generation. However, this is not that simple, and several factors must be considered for success of MRCT. If good outcome is needed from MRCTs, we need to take care of regional differences, scientific and general ones, technical expertise, sometimes just like I told you, the standard of care and attitudes, resources, etc. If these differences are considered and they are managed with the local SOPs only instead of disturbing the entire MRCT protocols, MRCT can be a good approach. And we, for any MRCTs to succeed in any country or region, regulatory environment must be supportive. And for that, we in India have come out with the new drugs and clinical trial rules, which gives a lot of flexibilities. And we encourage people to start the early clinical development in our country, starting from early stages of enrollments of the patients and uh, starting phases, so that the early data generation can assure the early access to the global product, which can serve the need of the patients. With this, I cannot explain more about the advantages of MRCTs, and to encourage all stakeholders to do it with all zeal. And regulatory environment in India will always support it for early access to the better therapeutic options in our country. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.